In the Idaho court case, there's just been such strict control over every element of the court case, and documents have been sealed. But has the gag order been violated by one of the top attorneys?
When the lead prosecutor sends an email that ends up in the hands of media, it kind of sounds like it was violated. So what's going on? Was the gag order violated? I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
So we discussed this a bit in a previous episode where an email that the lead prosecutor had sent had ended up in the hands of the media. Andrew, what do you got to say on that topic?
Well, Lainey, in context, just remember that there's just been such strict control over everything. In a previous episode, we went over the amended order governing courthouse and courtroom conduct, where you can't even go to the bathroom and come back. Women can't even bring purses in. So there's just been such strict control over this case, and that continues, and it tightens and tightens and tightens. So yes, in a previous episode, we took a look at an email by the lead prosecutor, Mr. Thompson, that ended up in the newspaper. That was then. This is now, and there's a new one. And I mean, we just have to put it into that context. So sure, let's take a look at what the non-dissemination order, the amended non-dissemination order that's in effect now, and what it says. Okay, again, to put everything in context, here is a copy of the revised amended non-dissemination order as it's in effect now. It had been amended. And it points out that, as discussed in detail in the court's order denying Shannon Gray's request to be exempt from the amended non-dissemination order and granting a request that the order be clarified, the court did, in fact, clarify it. And the court said, and we addressed this in a previous episode, that the court must attempt to balance the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial with the First Amendment rights to free speech and free press. To preserve the right to a fair trial, some curtailment of the dissemination of information in the case is necessary and authorized under the law. So, therefore, the following is ordered. The prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys, any agents of the prosecuting attorneys and defense attorneys, and any attorneys representing witnesses, victims, or a victim's family are prohibited from making extrajudicial statements, written or oral, that the lawyer or agent knows or reasonably should know will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing or otherwise influencing the outcome of the case. This order specifically prohibits any out-of-court statement which a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication that relates to the following. So note, Lainey, that it doesn't say that the statement has to be directly to the press or the media. It just prohibits any out-of-court statement which a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication. And there are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, different types of things that are found to be against the non-dissemination order. The identity or nature of evidence expected to be presented at trial or any sentencing phase of the proceeding. Any information a lawyer knows or presumably should know is likely to be inadmissible as evidence in trial, and that would, if disclosed, create a substantial risk of prejudicing an impartial trial. And it goes on with respect to the different things that a person may not speak about with respect to this non-dissemination order. So here is a newspaper article that appeared in the Chronicle. In a previous episode, we had noted an article that was published on December 27th in the Spokesman Review. Well, here's another one. The Chronicle, December 29th. This is after the 1122 home was demolished. Constant reminder, home where University of Idaho students were killed is demolished. And it goes into the, fact that it was demolished. Media, police, construction workers, and neighbors watched in silence Thursday as the creaking and crashing noises from a track hoe tearing down the home where the 4 students were killed last year echoed through the streets of Moscow. So the article goes on. We're not going to read it all because most of this is material that we've already covered. But let's go down to the third page on our printout here and look what it says. Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson gave the go-ahead with no objection by Kohberger's defense to tear the house down on December 22nd. He wrote in an email to some university staff that a review of Idaho case law showed the current condition of the property is so substantially different that at the time of the homicides that a jury walkthrough would never be approved. We appreciate the UI, that would be the University of Idaho's, help in facilitating the investigators gathering the necessary measurements, etc., to enable the creation of illustrative exhibits that should be admissible and helpful to the jury. Well, all right, if they're not allowed to talk about evidence, the home's not there anymore, so it certainly isn't evidence. But wait a minute. They went in there with LiDAR and some other scanning equipment and they scanned it. And certainly that will be introduced as evidence. And in the other newspaper article, Mr. Thompson, the lead prosecutor, said, well, it's not substantially similar anymore because there have been so many things that have happened in that home since the crimes. Well, substantial similarity is an evidentiary concern, and whether or not there's substantial similarity is a determination for a judge to make, not one of the attorneys. And the fact that the parties unilaterally agreed, or I shouldn't say unilaterally, but together both agreed to have the house torn down, shouldn't make a difference because justice is justice and the non-dissemination order is the non-dissemination order. I don't know. That's how I see it. Lainey, how do you see it?
I see it as a disaster. I don't know, the whole thing. I mean, it's really, I guess, just like a red flag to me, the fact that it even got to the media in the first place. It kind of makes sense to me because when you think of university, you don't know what students have access, like, because some students will have like admin privileges to some things because they're doing like office work for some of the people that may be, the people at the school. So like, it kind of makes sense that it got out there because you don't know what students are able to have access to what documents. I mean, I don't know, maybe they figured out how the media got this information, but at the same time, I don't know, it's weird. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching right now agree that it was weird that they got rid of the house in the first place, and it's weird that we have this type of information about it, that it's not evidence, but I don't know. It's so crazy.
I think that people parsing through the specifics of that non-dissemination order A through J may be able to parse their way or wiggle their way, however you want to say it, through, well, what he said wasn't specifically one of the A through J's. But wait a minute. That is the scene of the crime. And it is a matter of controversy, whether the prosecution and the defense agree on it or not. It is a matter of controversy that it was the scene of the crime. It will be presented, photographs and other documentary and video likenesses of it will be presented to the jury. And it's questionable whether it's prejudicial or not that the house was taken down. Not only taken down, but did you hear this? Not only did they take it down, but they trucked all of the remains of the place, the rubble, and they buried it underground. So, that there has been such amount of restriction in this case. Women can't carry their purses into the courtroom. You can carry in your phone, but it's got to be off. You can use a laptop, but you may not report. You may not go online to Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. So there's just such a restrictive amount of orders in this case, stopping any kind of communication, whether it is the gag order, the non-dissemination order, the secreting of all the documents, the sealing of them. But then in flagrant apparent violation of that gag order, the lead prosecutor, I'm going to send an email, and any reasonable person can figure you send an email to the university on a major topic of interest and importance, that's going to end up in the newspaper. Come on. I hate it when people say come on, by the way, but I mean, if it's not a flagrant violation of the non-dissemination, it sure doesn't pass the smell test. That's how I see it. And I think it's a violation.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even see the rubble of the house. The rubble of the house is that secretive that it needs to get buried. I think that it is very sloppy. I think it is messy that the email got out there. I don't really know what the thing is just like a part of me is just like I want to give them like, the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, how would they know that the email would, get spread or um just what other solutions they have to communication. But at the same time, I'm like a little bit biased because I'm like, well, I don't know if the house necessarily should have been taken down. Obviously it's not my call to make, but uh I'm not too surprised that this happened.
Well, here's how I see it. I mean, it's a major topic. Obviously, the 1122 crime scene is a major topic. The crime that happened there is of worldwide interest. We know that the courts acknowledged that. And the tearing down of the premises, even though it was agreed to apparently by both the prosecution and the defense, and never even, as far as we know, anyhow, was subject of any kind of court review. Nonetheless, it is a controversial topic. And to write an email, to write an extrajudicial comment out of court to a university about that topic, I think any reasonable person could deduct and deduce and figure that it's going to end up in the news media. And it seems like a sidestep. If it's not a direct violation of the non-dissemination order, it's at the very least a sidestep around it that at the very least, as come on, with the fact that there's just been so much secrecy and silence and sealing in this case, for the lead prosecutor to come out and start making comments, that's a chink in the armor of the secrecy in this case. And if they want to make more statements, I'm sure there will be a lot of people listening. And I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. What do you think that our commenters think of all of this?
Oh gosh. Well, I am wondering if our commenters have similar opinions to me right now, where that this is something that could come back and bite them in the butt. But I also have a couple of comments here based on our last videos, if you wanted to go through some of those.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah, because we didn't do them in the last episode that we did, and we get a lot of feedback. So yeah, why don't you start?
Yeah, so on one of our last videos, Idaho 4 Mystery Tunnels, Truth, and Transparency, we have Alpine Arts who says, "Thank you, Andrew and Lainey, for having CJ on. He seems really intelligent and his theories are logical. I have subscribed to his channel. I'm so very sick of the disinformation people spread in regards to BK in this case. So this video was great. Thanks to all of you. And thank you, Alpine Arts, for the kind words. And I'm sure CJ appreciates the compliments as well. We're glad that you guys appreciate having different opinions and different faces on the podcast."
Okay, I've read a lot of good comments like that. I'm going to read a really short one, but it's a question that I'm going to answer. And this is from Terry Lee Westman, I believe it is. And she asks, how come Bethany Funk was allowed to leave the state? Well, she's not under any kind of a court order. Under the Constitution of the United States, we have freedom of motion. You can move from one state to another. And as I had gone through the statutory law in a previous episode, one state can, in fact, validly and legally subpoena a witness from another state, and that state must observe that and order that state's resident to appear. So Bethany Funk is not subject to any court order to stay. So she didn't violate any court order by moving out of Idaho and we believe she is still in Nevada. So that's the answer to that.
I have this message from Carol Herzog 3313 on our "Did our attorneys violate the secretive gag order" video.
Oh, that's on point to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. A little on brand. So this one, I will say the comment is not super related to what we're talking about, but if he had cuts, he would not have gone to the doctor. The doctor without cuts could be a witness, a calculated appointment, which I thought was interesting. And a lot of people have been saying one way, like, oh, HIPAA, the doctor can't say anything, or if they did see cuts, or now this is kind of like the opposite. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, the doctor can't say anything, but this is kind of the opposite, saying, well, he could just go to the doctor and the doctor says he didn't have any cuts or stuff. I don't know if that could actually be someone that comes in at any point, I would be surprised, and I kind of doubt it, but it would be interesting if the doctor could be a witness to testify that he did not have any like strange injuries. I doubt the doctor would even do that in the first place, but I thought that was an interesting comment.
Yeah, I think the answer to the question is that he really can't be compelled unless there's a subpoena and the judge decides the issue. The doctor in Idaho and most states, and I was looking through Idaho's evidentiary laws earlier. Again, I'm not licensed there, only licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, but I've looked through their evidentiary laws. And there is a doctor-patient confidentiality privilege. It's an evidentiary privilege, which says that he should not be compelled to testify. And as a practical matter, let's just think about it. If Brian Kohberger had committed a horrible crime and had scars and cuts all over his body, do you think he'd be going to a doctor and letting him examine that? I don't.
And that's, I think, a lot of what people were thinking too. I have another comment, AB et 1UG, and this is on the same video, the Did Attorneys Violate the Secretive Gag Order video. And we have firing squad. Death is barbaric in this day and age. Funny it was brought up to change the law while this case is still not even running. Seems like Idaho has barbaric mentality considering the number of individuals innocent sitting in jail. The Innocence Project does its best to get through them, but it seems legal system does not like to admit any wrongdoing at all and takes multiple years fighting against absolutely innocent victims, especially Black males. A response to that from Carol again is he might walk, but he won't survive. Too many gun holders will be looking for their own idea of justice. And we've been talking about this a little bit with not being able to do lethal injection, and that's why they're applying the firing squad. But I've talked about this a little bit myself. I think in our video we discussed that the firing squad is like scary because it's just like also is just like, you're having other people, like a group of people shooting at them. And I believe this happened on the video where we discussed a blank in one of them. So the person who shoots doesn't necessarily, they can say they didn't. But the whole thing, it just seems very chaotic, very messy. And I agree with Carol to a degree where it's a little bit scary because no matter what happens in this court case, if he's found, guilty, firing squad, which is crazy, but also if he's found innocent, how do you even go back to a regular life after this? It's insane.
Yeah, the firing squad thing is kind of over the top. We talked about that in a previous episode.
Dramatic.
It's over the top. So we talked about that in a previous episode. So I am going to move along to a comment that we received from Wolf Ross. He has 5 subscribers. So congratulations. It's hard to get subscribers. And by the way, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe and like, and we'll be able to bring you additional comment. We have all kinds of plans for this year. So Wolf Ross said, there is more evidence against the 2 girls. They were there when it happened. They didn't call 911 to get aid for the victims while they may have had a chance to survive. They called over friends and contaminated the crime scene. Were they covering up their activities? Why weren't they arrested at that time? I'm just reading. I'm not going to comment on that one. I'm just reading it. We're getting a lot of comments along that vein, though. So that's a thought that's out there.
Comment that I have here made me laugh. From Rob9mm, and Andrew might even be surprised that I'm pulling this one out. It's been the same video that I've been pulling the comments from. Did attorneys violate the secretive gag order? Rob9mm says, Lainey calling an officer of the law a D-bag was way out of line. Shame on you. Yeah, bad girl. This person, clearly has never had an encounter with New York police, and it shows. Listen, I've had great experiences with cops in New Hampshire. I've had bad experiences with cops in New Hampshire. There's good cops, there's bad cops. My cousin's a cop. Rob9mm, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a cop because 9mm. But yeah, I don't take it back. I stand by it.
You go to New York. So bad. Yeah. Not only did you commit a horrible crime by not turning your high beams down, driving in your car, But then you also call the police officer, the fine police officer, a naughty name.
Honestly, just put me on the firing squad next.
I think that's appropriate. Yeah, firing squad. We're standing out of the hallway right now. So.
Exactly. No, and this is my fire. This is the only thing I'll say about this. Like, it is very common. It is disturbingly common in New York, and this isn't my scenario when I got pulled over. But not only have I heard the story from other people, this has happened to me myself, where you're driving in the middle of the night. There's, you're going slow because God knows when a deer is going to come out. Police officers will drive up your butt, try to make you drive faster. In New York specifically, I haven't had this issue outside of New York.
I always pull off the road when that happens.
Yeah, that's what I did. I get so annoyed. I'll never forget. I pulled. This person was up my butt. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just gonna pull over. And I look, and it's a cop. I was like, bro, like, come on, like, why? We don't need this. Go. I don't know. Do your job.
I didn't know you were going to read that one. I'm going to tell a really quick story along those lines. I'm not going to mention any names, but I moved from one state to another little teeny tiny little state in a little teeny tiny little town in that teeny tiny little state. And I had a sports car, a really nice Nissan 240SX, nice shiny black sports car. But it had the license plates of the other state that I had moved from.
Dun, dun, dun.
And almost every day for the first 10 days, 2 weeks, that I commuted and got off of the interstate and rode the 4 miles back to my house, a local police officer tailed me every single time. So what I did is the speed limit's 35 miles an hour. In those days, I had not only my radar detector, but I also had cruise control. So the speed limit was 35. You know what I did? I put my cruise control exactly on 35 miles an hour. So from the interstate highway to my house, I drove 35 miles an hour with the police officers in the town, often following. Often, however, they just got frustrated and realized what I was doing. They couldn't stop me because I wasn't doing anything bad. I was just driving down the street. The funny thing is that the day I re-registered my car, and it was only 2 weeks, I re-registered my car in the new state. Those tailings stopped.
Crazy.
Isn't what a coincidence?
I think that's like my headlight story, because I think I had New Hampshire plates at the time. So I don't think they thought I would fight back on the ticket and show up in court in New York. I think that's what they do, is that they're just like, we're going to try to give this person a ticket because they're not coming back.
So anyhow, let's move on to George Brown sent me this comment, and it said, and we're just reading them, folks. The tunnel nonsense is crazy. Touch DNA on the sheath, car matching suspect, vehicle description, just happened to turn his phone off during the time of the murders and back on after, caught separating his garbage from his family's to avoid DNA detection, history of problems with women. He is either the most unlucky person ever or he did it. Which makes more sense? Any law enforcement who participated in framing him would go to jail for life if caught. Come the hell on. Enough with this. We're just reading them, folks.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, what's going to happen in the court is going to happen in the court. But like the previous comment said, it's not like people haven't been charged incorrectly. But that comment brings up the tunnels, which, a little bit of a sidebar. We are never going to get past these tunnel comments. The situation just got infinitely worse, because not only when we talked about the tunnels did everybody in the comments continue to bring up the tunnels. New York, that I don't know, Andrew, if you're super familiar, but there was this situation in New York. They had no tunnels. But now in New York, there was the internet has been in uproar because there were underneath this synagogue temple. They were building tunnels underneath from New York City, and there's all this footage now of tunnels under New York, and the tunnel situation is getting out of control. I've mentioned the TikToks before. The tunnel situation is rapidly getting more intense.
There are tunnels. There are tunnels in Moscow. We're not going to go into it, but someone somewhere posted a map of the sewer tunnels, the storm drains, and said that these were the steam tunnels. Storm drains are not something you can walk through. The steam tunnels actually are, but the steam tunnels don't go anywhere near. So Enough about tunnels already. Here's an interesting comment. Okay, here we go. This one's from Heidi. And Heidi writes, it should be all of our concerns to ensure that the alleged perpetrator has a fair trial. Nobody should be able to ignore the corruption, lies, and incompetence going on in this case. We're just reading them, folks. That's all. Your turn.
I have a comment from Linda Aslinson 2201. This channel is the best on legal analysis of this case and the review of the facts of this matter. Shout out, Linda.
I just want to mention a comment that I received on another channel. I had actually been watching another channel, Harsh. Great guy. And I forgot. I don't even know what comment I had made. I had made a comment. And someone came on with a very long comment scolding me. You're an attorney. Your duty is to the courts and not to any client. And that's your over. And went on to scold me about, thinking about commenting and, going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Let me just say this about that. There's so many attorneys, not only on this platform, but in the legacy media and everywhere. There are so many attorneys who are out there commenting. I'm not even going to dignify the comment that I received on that other channel. What I will say is that it was an anonymous comment. And I posted, if that person wants to comment under their own name, if they want to come forward and give their own name and their own identity, you know who I am. My identity's out there. I give my own personal name on this channel. You can go into the description center down below and find all of our contact information. So I'm not hiding anything, but to give me a comment like that, it reminds me some of the stupidest things that have ever been said to me in my entire life come after somebody says, well, you're an attorney, and then they have a rant. And the one that sticks out in my mind the most time was I was going to church one time, and I'm walking into the church, and I think it was Christmas Eve, actually. And I'm walking into my church, and one of the members of the congregation comes over to me and says, you're an attorney, And then she proceeded to give me a rant about something that the president of the United States at that time had done. Because I'm an attorney, I apparently have the authority to know that the president of the United States is... So don't give me this, you're an attorney, because you know what? It's rubbish. So anyhow.
Yeah, it's always been a little bit weird to me because I have always had a completely neutral stance to all professions. Some are a little strange, but at the end of the day, we're all just people, relatively normal people working our jobs. And it is crazy to see you are an attorney comments here on YouTube, especially before now we have a wonderful loving audience, but before that, some of them no most we love all of you guys, even the ones that complain about us. You're still here watching, so thank you for the watch time. But I was shocked, but I guess not too surprised, because it seems like people have their own personal issues with attorneys, presumably because they have their own legal issues. I do have, and this is my last comment, from Kelly Ward 4819, and I thought this was interesting, and I'll go read it now. My second cousin, twice removed, was Arthur James Gooch, put to death by hanging in 1936, McAllister, Oklahoma. Case of the usual method of execution not available, and the alternative being inhumane. He strangled for 15 minutes before he died because the executioner had no experience in hanging versus electric chair. And while I have no reason, I cannot verify that Kelly is actually the second cousin twice removed. I have no reason to believe that Kelly's lying, but I also did look up Arthur James Gooch, and I did see that what Kelly is saying with that is accurate. And that, it's an unsettling thought. It's just an unsettling thought. Where it's just like something can go wrong, and at the end of the day, I think, I don't know, I could go in, we could talk forever about the death penalty and all the implications of that, but the idea of making a person potentially be there slowly dying and in pain for 15 minutes, I don't necessarily I don't think that is something that people should be looking forward to or excited about, at the end of the
No, of
day.
course not.
Yeah.
No.
I think, death penalty and firing squad and things going wrong, all gruesome ideas.
Well, let me say this about that before my closing comment, and I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I am old enough to remember when the Supreme Court was, outlawing the death penalty, and there were people that said, well, Charles Manson, at that point he had been sentenced to the death penalty, and because they reversed and said no more death penalty, they kept him alive. And I remember people arguing for life imprisonment as opposed to the death penalty. And this goes way back to when all of that happened. I remember people saying, oh, well, we should keep him alive and psychoanalyze him and talk to him and, see what we can learn. Well, Mr. Manson has passed, and a whole slew of new books have come out since he passed. And I have yet to find one thing that we've learned from keeping him alive. That's my comment. So my closing thought is this: we get comments all over the place from people that just are convinced that Brian Kohberger is guilty. I read one of them, stop the games. We all know he's guilty. They saw the car, his DNA's on the sheath. We know he's guilty. What's wrong with you people? Why are you even discussing this? And then we get comments on the other side of the spectrum where people say, he's been framed. The police did a terrible job. It's so obvious that he's innocent. It's so obvious that the drug people did it, or it's so obvious that the frat people or the Bandfield people, it's so obvious that people came from the tunnel. And what's the matter with you people? So, I'm only going to say it again, although I'll probably say it every single time that we do this podcast, and we're putting it on the bottom of the screen right now, is that I'm an attorney, yes. And as such, I, long before I even thought about the possibility of going to law school, I understood that, people that are accused in this country have a right under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of this country to a presumption of innocence. That's what we're saying. I have an open mind. I don't know what happened the night of November 13th, 2022 at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. I do not know. I have no idea. Like a lot of people, I am waiting for the trial so we can learn. This case has generated worldwide attention. Here we are on the East Coast, and it happened, 3,000 miles away on the West Coast. So my position has always been that we all need to, as American citizens, respect the presumption of innocence until such time as he's found otherwise. So I guess I have to say that every single time, because we continue to get these comments, and we love comments. Please comment. If you hate what I just said, send the comment. But, people tell us that, why you come on with these comments. I don't know if you saw that comment. Why do you even continue with these podcasts when you know he's guilty? Guess what? I don't know he's guilty. I don't know he's innocent. But in any event, that's my closing rant. Lainey, now it's time for yours.
I just want to say thank you to everybody commenting, as always. And if there's anything you want us to talk about in particular, please let us know in the comments. I know you guys are very passionate about the Kohberger case, and you guys are always bringing up, points of the Kohberger case. And anything you guys want, we're here for you. We're glad you guys continue to watch our show, and we're glad that we can just create something that people have been enjoying. So thank you guys.
Have a good day. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts, and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.
That's that.
And that's that.